Okay, today we'll talk about the topic of today's front-end architecture of Glific. So if you all have seen the previous webinars, the Glific architecture is basically the front-end is in React and the back-end is in Elixir. So today we'll focusing on the front-end part of Glific that is built on React. And the topic, the agenda for today is like why we choose React for this. And I'll just show you a demonstration of what's the current front-end architecture, like how we are architected the files and where we have keeping all the things. Okay. So before going to that, I would just like to quickly talk about what Glific is and how it's helping NGOs to scale their operations. So what problem does Glific trying to solve? As we can see in the last COVID wave, NGOs could not meet their beneficiaries physically. So they needed a medium to help NGOs to show their programs with share with their beneficiaries and show like how it can be done more easily. So NGOs needed some medium to communicate with them. And after quite a research, they found that WhatsApp is the medium that they can interact with their beneficiaries. So what Glyphic does it actually creates using automation. It helps us create WhatsApp chatbots that can connect with the NGOs with their beneficiaries, so that NGO a single person should not have to do the work. The chatbot can take care of what the work is needed. So that's just a brief of what Glyphic is. And if you want, you can know more features of Glyphic by visiting the website glyphic.org. You can see the team and know about like what Glyphic is more. So now we'll focus on why we choose React for this front-end architecture. Any questions so far for Glyphic and anything? Or I can move in? No? Okay. Okay, so let me just start with why we choose React for this. So I could like quote like there can be speed, there's flexibility in React, there's performance in React, we can use reusable components, there is a large community, but I'm not going to talk about that. I will tell you like the real reason why we chose React. So let me just quickly go here and I'll just go like why we choose React, and before that, why we choose Elixir. So for building this application, we needed to create a chatbot. So for chatbot, we need an interaction with real-time updates on our screen, and a lot of research and consideration. After that, we choose Elixir as a language, as a go-to language to make that chatbot and handle that scale of messages. If you want to know more about like why we use Elixir and GraphQL, you can visit a previous webinars where we have talked about GraphQL and Elixir more. So with Elixir and GraphQL support, we had the power to make as few API calls as possible and only get the data that we need. With that, we can create interactive UIs. But for that, with the GraphQL work and handling that state management, we needed a front-end development library, you can say. So we had options like Angular, React, and Vue. So now the previous scale comes in consideration. We choose because of these parameters, like we has the reusable components in there. We can connect React easily with GraphQL. We had a vast developer community, and the performance is great. The flexibility is right, and the speed is also great. So when these points come in after these points, okay. So I'll just go like why React is a UI library. It's not a framework. You guys know like the difference between a library and a framework. I'll just explain in a brief like difference between a library and a framework. I'll just take an analogy of a cake versus a bakery. So if you want to build a cake, what do? Like you get all the ingredients. If you want to make it square, you can make it square. If you want cream, you can put in cream. You want red, you want cherries, you can do it everything manually. So that is what a library can help you with. Like you can configure everything and you have the power to do so. But if you want a cake, if you want to buy a cake and go to a bakery, you have the option to just change colors or so some things are predefined in there. The structure of the cake will be predefined. You can just tweak it a little bit, like you can change the names or something. So that's actually what a framework is. It has a predefined structure. Over that, you can build some of the things, but the structure would be the same. But in a library, you can configure and tweak that structure yourself. So the possibility is more with the libraries. Okay.
So I have a quick question here. Like you mentioned, React is a library. The previous frameworks which you specified, like Angular and Vue. So should I consider them as well a UI library, or they are separate entities, like
Vue is a
unlike React?
UI. Yeah, Vue is a UI library. Angular JS is a UI library. Angular is a framework.
So I mean, you said it has speed, it has performance, flexibility, and reusable components. So I mean, is there any metrics or any resource where, I mean, you mentioned that we had a lot of research. So is there any resource or metrics where I can, just analyze the I mean, if I will be needing a similar application to build my own in future, so is there any metrics where I can visit and
It's
see?
just a Google search away. But if you want specifics, then I can share some docs where we had that research. Where should we go for Apollo client? And so we considered previous examples also. Have you heard of Discord?
Yeah.
So that is also built on Elixir and React. So we consider previous examples and success cases, and also based on that, we choose React. So not only like the performance and everything, we considered previous successes and also many other things. Also, if you
So
want, yeah.
it was hands-on experience with some applications where you found that React would be most suitable one.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, let's move forward. So what are the things, if we have chosen React, now what are the things that we need to consider in our front end? So let me just give you what are the things. First, since React is a JavaScript library, and it is what we can say, it needs to be compiled and minified. So for compilation, we need to have a debugger, like some errors we can make on a runtime, sorry, on our development time. So that we need to take in consideration. So since it's a library, we don't have a defined structure. Like if you have worked with Laravel and WordPress, so you get a predefined structure. The file should be placed here, the images should be there. But in React, we don't have any such thing. So we should also decide like what can be the directory structure. Next, we have like how can we manage state and handle subscriptions in real time. So since it's a chats application, we need to consider like whenever a new message comes in, how do we handle that? How do we append that message to the UI? Uh, since also one of the main reasons to choose React was we had the UI components by our React, or do we say community? So we have one of the famous libraries by Google that's called Material UI, and that we have integrated in here. So that helped really with the developer and the designer. The designer can just use that buttons or something with the Material UI, and we can just easily import them and make them into code for rapid development. Next, we have, it should have automation in linting and formatting. So sometimes what happens is like if multiple developers are working, and it happened with many of us, I have 2 spaces somewhere, and like PK can have 4 spaces in the same project. So in that, we have automation in formatting. So like if we save, so PK will also have the same formatting, and we provide a configuration file for that. Next, we have, so the main thing that we do is like unit testing for each and every component. With testing, you can figure out like what are the bugs there, and if someone new comes in, he can also, if he make changes to the code, he can also figure out like I've done some mistake in the code with that test cases. And the final thing is like how do we connect to the backend with the GraphQL client. So these are the things that we need to make into consideration, and we followed after that. Okay. Any questions here? Okay, moving forward. So since React is a JavaScript, so we write simple JavaScript code there. And in JavaScript, there is one thing that's missing, and that are basically types. So types are, if you worked with C, C++, so there you can see we have defined int, there's defined float, there is, what are the Boolean. In JavaScript, we don't have as such. We just defined a var, and it can be of any type. It can be a Boolean, it can be a string, it can be something. So what TypeScript does it adds an additional layer to that, and it allows us to define types to a particular variable. If you will work in React, you will find it really, really helpful. Like when you define components and you need to pass in props, therein this feature will come in too much handy. So like if you can see in this example, I try to pass contact ID as a true. in normal JavaScript, it would have worked, but in TypeScript, it will give an error. Like I've defined contact ID can either be string or either be a, what are the types, number. So with TypeScript, I have a lot more capability of debugging and everything. Okay, so that we put in first. Next, as I said, like the linting and formatting. So if I just press save, and you can see it automatically formats the code. So I don't need to think like I should press in 2 spaces, I should press in 4 spaces. I just press save, and with an extension and the configuration file, my whole file gets formatted. Also with ESLint, what we have done is like if we write any code that is not good, it just shows a red green line over there that the thing is not correct. Okay. Anything with linting and formatting that you guys want to ask? Have you used anywhere or seen? No? Okay. Okay, let's move forward. Next, what we used is Material UI, and it's the, what I can say, best by Google. It takes into consideration how a user's mind work, and provides a soothing colors and the rounded corners and animations. So we didn't need to redefine the whole UI ourselves. We use the Material UI, and it helps us in rapid development. So we can just pick up the component and we can put in our UI. So the things that you can see over here, the three things. So these are used in Glific, and these are all Material UI components.
So these animations and these things are all components of Material UI.
Yeah. So if you can see my mouse, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this is the input component, and the animation that you can see, the title going above, it's all provided Material UI. I just need to put in a component. This is the input component, and it will just give me this whole structure for the input. And the title and animation it provides by itself. I can tweak it a little bit, but overall default architecture is very good. I can just change colors and all.
And if we have to like, I mean, if there is something in the design which is not available, so we can extend the Material UI
Yeah,
as well, or
we
it
can
has
extend.
limited component?
It has, we can extend easily, but what we have gone with the approach with that we need to create the structure as fast as soon as possible, and we uh, choose the best the UI component library in that stuff. So when Abhishek tried to design, he thinks of the way how can I design the Material UI. So he picked up components from there, and then he put in the design and library. So in that case, the development and the design is pretty close, and we can do it more easily. But if something needs to be extended, it can be done more easily than to reinvent the wheel by ourselves. Okay.
So,
Yes.
Shamoon, you are saying that the designer is take inspiration from Material UI itself.
Yeah. So
You are on mute.
yeah. So designer, when we choose this library, we incorporate designers so that we ask the designer to choose the default or the themes that Material UI provides, and we can build over that, but the default should be this one, so that the developer team and the design team can move forward very easily and small amount of time. Also, since Material UI is the most famous library and used by many people, so it's pretty reliable, like the user interface will be good. Any other questions?
So this is just one of the alternative I can say is Bootstrap.
Uh, it goes one layer above Bootstrap. Bootstrap just provides uh, some interactions, but with Material UI, you can pass in interactions over click also with JavaScript, like what should be on hover, what should be on click. Like also you could see the input box changing the title, moving the title to upward. That cannot be, I think, done with Bootstrap. So
Okay.
it's similar to Bootstrap, but next level to that.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. So moving forward. So the initial, since I told you like this is a UI library and not a framework, so we need to create a predefined framework for this. the directory structure. So since Glific is an open source application and we are versioning there, initially with 0.1 version that was in May 2020, it looked something like this. We had stolen something from the Laravel architecture, or I think it was WordPress, but yeah. So we had assets, the common things that should be gone, the components where we put in our UI stuff, like the form, the buttons and everything. One is the configuration files, and next we have the containers where we put in the whole page structure. Like in Glyphic, we have many pages like flows and all. So there that we put in containers. And finally, the GraphQL files are put here. So if you don't have any idea of GraphQL, you can learn more about GraphQL and how we connect GraphQL and with React and Elixir. Moving ahead stages with version 0.3, some new things comes with new things coming in, like TypeScript. We need to define types for each and every component. So we created a structure called directory called types. There we moved in all our types and any other thing. Also, we had the youth auth and authorization. So for that, we put in context. So we have some roles like admin and stuff. These are handled in this context directory. And now we reach to our current version 1.6.0, and there you can see the structure has totally changed. And we added some more things like IIT which helps in the multilingual approach. Like we can change the English to Hindi in our UI interface. And for unit test, we have some mock data. And similarly, the structure that we came to till now, it's working for us. And since there is not predefined structure, and now it's looking pretty good. But yeah, we are open to changes if we will see this can be changed. So this is how we got to the current structure with each new things coming up. And yeah. So moving forward. So this is the one of the best thing like we can do in React with the state management and subscriptions. So whenever someone sends a message, it instantly comes up on our screen. It does not refresh. It does not do anything, and we does not even make an API call there. It handles all that through subscriptions, and we'll tell more about subscriptions in the coming webinars. Until then, you can just see how subscriptions work and how WebSockets work. So
can you elaborate a bit on state management? Like, I'm not sure what state it is referring to right now.
Okay, so in UI libraries, there's a thing called state. So current state is, you can see like in the default screen, you can see we have two messages. Okay, so in our default state, we have an object called messages, and there will be two messages in that state. So it's basically a JavaScript object. When we will have two messages. So that state can be updated, and it updates the UI with that state. Oh, I think I'm confusing you.
So is it like a button is enabled or a button is?
Yeah, so if you see that analogy, like if the button is active or the button is disabled, so that is the state of a button. Similarly, we have a state of a whole application, like how many messages are there, how many contacts are there. So we update that state only with the new subscription or the new API call comes in. We don't refresh, we don't change anything. It's similar to like how you make AJAX calls, and when something
Right,
comes back, we update the UI.
I
We
got
just do
it.
it with that state, the whole application state. For that, we initially had thought of Redux as a state management library, but finally we considered Apollo Cache. You can read more about Redux and Apollo Cache, and we'll talk about in future webinars also. Okay. So moving forward, yeah. Anything, PK?
No, I think it's clear.
Moving forward, what we do is we test our application quite thoroughly. For that, we have written unit test cases, and if something changes, it checks with all the test cases, like the test cases are passing and each interaction is passing. So we are using Jest for the unit testing, and you can learn more about Jest by just Googling it, or we'll talk about in our future webinars. Next, we have the CICD checks, and the final thing. So whenever if you have heard about continuous integration that GitHub or any other CI/CD pipeline provides, we can provide some steps there, and that steps will run on our like branch changes, on our merges, on our pull requests. So like on CD check, what we have done is if we merge something in master, in our master branch, any branch will merge to master, it will automatically get deployed on staging. So we don't need to do that build step, like take a pull from there and then npm run production or that steps. So that will automatically be done on a branch merge. Next, we have some CI checks that will run if you open a pull request again master. So it will check like if all the test cases are passing, if all the Cypress tests are passing, if we have any issues with the code quality, if the code quality is matching the current quality, if we have any security issues there. So these are the things that we have, the checks that we have added in our GitHub pipeline. So this is the final thing in the front-end architecture that we did. And with this, we completed the whole front-end architecture. Okay, that's it from my side. Thank you, everyone. Any questions? Any questions, suggestions, feelings?
I had a feeling of like, I mean, it was very rapid. Some of the sections I was not able to follow you actually, but I got a gist of like what you were saying. So, I mean, there were several instances where I could only get the word which you are saying, but I was not aware of the concept. So maybe if you can highlight that in bits and pieces, like the things which are in upcoming webinar, how it is being used in the React, just a gist of that. I mean, it would make more clarity to me, and I mean, it would help actually. I was expecting that, so that was just a feeling.
Okay. Okay, so if no other questions, then we can wrap up this for today. Thank you guys for joining us. And next week, we'll have another webinar on React, wherein we'll touch one of the following things that we mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the knowledge to us.
Welcome.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.